The Antarctic is one part of the world you might have thought would be affected by global warming. But for the last 2 decades, the Antarctic Peninsula, the tip of the continent nearest to South America, has not got any warmer, scientists have found. Research stations on the peninsula show that while temperatures rose rapidly since the 1950s, the temperature has stayed steady and even declined since the late 1990s. Part of the answer why the Antarctic Peninsula has not got any warmer in the past 2 to 3 decades is because more cold southeasterly and easterly winds are blowing towards the area from the Weddell Sea. A further reason is because the hole in the ozone layer, caused by gases in aerosols called CFCs, is beginning to heal up, helping to shield Antarctica from solar radiation. The hole has started to close since the polluting CFCs have been banned. The scientists behind the finding are keen to stress that the pause in Antarctic warming does not mean that global warming worldwide has come to a stop. They say the 6 research stations on the peninsula cover only 1% of the total continent of Antarctica. Glaciers are still retreating, and ice shelves are still collapsing in the region. They also note that temperatures are still warmer than at the beginning of the century. Reporting this week in the journal Nature, researchers from British Antarctic Survey said changing wind patterns may also be temporarily masking the warming influence of greenhouse gases. The authors also note that the pause in warming coincides with the controversial global warming hiatus or slowdown, which claims that global temperatures started to slow down from 1996 from rising 0.14 degrees Celsius per decade up to 1996 and rising to 0.07 degrees Celsius per decade afterwards. But the authors argue that the pause in the Antarctic is independent of the global warming hiatus. Lead author, Professor John Turner of British Antarctic Survey says, the Antarctic Peninsula is one of the most challenging places on Earth on which to identify the causes of decade-to-decade temperature changes. They said that the peninsula shows large natural variations which can overwhelm the signals of human-induced global warming. He added, the ozone hole, sea ice and westerly winds have been significant in influencing regional climate change in recent years. Even in a generally warming world, over the next couple of decades, temperatures in this region may go up or down, but our models predict that in the longer term greenhouse gases will lead to an increase in temperatures by the end of the 21st century. Antarctic Peninsula temperatures increased by up to 0.5 degrees Celsius per decade until the 1950s when they stopped rising, the researchers said. The research team analyzed ice cores taken from drilling into the soil, which allows scientists to calculate the temperature at the time the ice was laid down. They found that the warming of the peninsula was not unprecedented over the past 2,000 years. Recently, they found that warming started in the 1920s, and revealed periods of warming and cooling over the last several centuries that were comparable to those observed in the post-1950s instrumental record. The authors said the findings highlights the large natural variability of temperatures in this region of Antarctica that has influenced more recent climate changes. Dr. Robert Mulvaney, is a leading ice core researcher at British Antarctic Survey, said, meteorological observations from the Antarctic Peninsula research stations only cover the last 60 years or so. If we are to get a better idea of the long-term trend, we need to look back in time. The ice core record helps us see how the climate evolves over the longer term. We can also look at the levels of carbon dioxide and other chemicals that were in the atmosphere and compare them with observations from today. Climate model simulations predict that if greenhouse gas concentrations continue to increase at currently projected rates, their warming effect will dominate over natural variability and there will be a warming of several degrees across the region by the end of this century.